Lastly, let's take this to the next level of sophistication, where we want our GenAI agent to create an entire semantic model and report with all the visualizations we want from scratch. Now, of course, this is the ultimate promise of agents, and the use case that is getting us all worried about our job security. But by watching this next snippet, I think you'll realize that this process isn't as simple as just going to your standard LLM tool, ChatGPT, Claude, or Copilot, for example, and ask it to create you a semantic model of report. It will do something, but of course it doesn't have any of the context for what you want to create. So it will just give you a very generic response on how to create a Power BI model report, or some generic code that won't work. Even if you put some requirements into your prompt, it's very unlikely to have nearly enough information to know how to create a good best practice model with that prompt alone. So what you have to do is context engineering. You have to provide the context of how it should approach this, with the different steps and detailed instructions for each step. You might have heard of the advice to treat GenAI like an eager and intelligent intern, someone who can learn and is probably a little overconfident and keen to please, but by default actually knows nothing about your business. If you imagine the level of details and clarification you will need to provide to this person, then that's the level of detail you need to provide in your instructions. These instructions are best written in the format of Markdown files, just basic formatted text which anyone can write. Of course, those with business analysis skills and good English skills are going to make the best context engineers. But like many skills, it's something that GenAI can also help with. So you could use GenAI to help write instructions for GenAI. How brilliant is that? Let's look at this demo, where Rui is this time providing the detailed context in Markdown files for what he wants the agent to do.
Consultants, you can put that word once, as you think of what's your process, what's your rules, and it will follow that. Okay? So I just asked it to create a spec, and it's not doing anything at this moment. It's just doing the analysis, going to maybe using an MCP server to connect to the data warehouse and infer the schema of the data warehouse, and it's going to create a spec for me. And you can see that now we are going deep dive on detail. It has things like the data source, the data source information, how it's going to organize the fact tables, what's the columns, what's the star schema implementation. Look, this is beautiful. I simply created the diagram for me. And I can just go here and review it and say, okay, yeah, you're doing like the wrong type of relationship. It should be one-to-many or many-to-many, whatever. And it's going to put some details about the measure, some details about the PBIP structure. So it's basically the blueprint of my Power BI development. And then I just say, go ahead and proceed with the implementation. And you can see it using the MCP server. It's going to create a semantic model from scratch. And it's going to, in the end, I will get the full semantic model implemented for me. And now this is, I think is at this stage. Another thing that it's doing, and you can see it happening now, is running the best practice analysis. So it's already created a semantic model, and you can see it running the BPA rules without it, and just looking at the results, you can see that it's failing because there are errors, and it's going to iterate until it gets right, and then there are no errors in my BPA. And now that I'm done, now it's going to copy that template report, and it's going to copy it, and now it's just going to work on the files. It's going to change the JSON exactly how I instructed it to change, and now it's going to give me like an implementation summary, and I have in that source folder, because I told them that I wanted to put everything in my source folder. I have an implementation summary of everything it has done, everything in Tyndall. Why? Because I said that the MCP server not only works with desktop, but it also works with the PBIP. It can serialize the entire semantic model into a PBIP structure, and again on the report, that JSON with a semantic model field of the semantic model and the entire PBIP implemented for me. And what I can do now is, of course, open this in Power BI desktop and just review whatever it has created, and you will see that you'll have that template report with the visuals. It made a choice, maybe not the right choice. Again, that's why the dev spec is important, because you get just, okay, the measure that you are going to choose for the report is not the right one, choose another one, but I get the full-blown semantic model for me. Now, this is not hard to do. Oh, another thing important, another best practice. I want to use parameters. So whenever you create a semantic model table, fetching data from a SQL Server database, make sure that you put parameters. So none of this is hard to do. But I can tell you that if you want to do this on your own in a new project, people spend like a good half a day or two just doing this. Because while you are creating, you are going to like rename things, you go back and forth, and sometimes you forget, maybe you are not consistent, you create the measures and you follow some inconsistency, go back and rename, and this can save you that time. And you can put again what's your process into this AI and having it creating.
Now in this session, Rui acknowledges that this isn't a 5-minute job to create all this context. But the bulk of the context is actually just the approach and best practices you wanted to apply, and perhaps some generic instructions on how to create TIMDL or report JSON code, or how to leverage report themes, or perhaps how to do modeling best practice and DAX patterns, including now, of course, user-defined functions. Whilst that's a lot of information to provide, it's a one-off activity that perhaps has to be revisited occasionally as more features come out, and indeed as you learn more. I'm sure we'll start to see some more community examples of these custom GPTs with all of this best practice baked in. But I think it's actually a great learning experience to build this context yourself, and you can make it very specific to you. Even if you take someone else's as a starting point, you'll still need to add in your business and model or report specific requirements. And yes, there is some effort involved in this, but it's a lot less than doing all the technical work yourself. What I think this means for us as Power BI and Fabric developers is that our roles will change to become less technical and coding heavy and more geared around context engineering. A good context engineer who knows enough of the technical detail to validate and iterate the result produced by Gen AI is going to be worth their gold in the job marketplace of the future. And just to finish off, we focused entirely on developers with the MCP servers, and they are no doubt a key audience for these tools. But there is also a far larger population of business users who are not expecting to just consume reports and datasets that developers have produced, but to also actually query data directly themselves for insights using natural language with Gen AI. For this, Microsoft are releasing also a consumer Power BI MCP server, Chat with Your Data. Let's take a quick look.
Okay, and the other MCP server is the Power BI Remote MCP. So the name will probably be just Power BI MCP, because we will start with query, but we will very likely also evolve to modeling. But the main difference is that this one you don't need to install anything. It will just run in Fabric. It will expose tools that will let you run DAX code, and it will also allow you to bring whatever the model you like to interact with Power BI semantic model. So this is how it looks like. I just open VS Code. Again, I could use other AI application, and I can just ask a question. And especially these more reasoning models, they know DAX, they can generate DAX, and they will generate the DAX for me and using the MCP server to basically run that DAX query, get the data, and for example, in this example, I'm just creating like a document with an executive summary from my semantic model. Again, the possibilities here are endless. Okay? It's not just to create reports or do an analysis. You can use this to, for example, tests. You can have an agent that just goes and runs a batch of tests against all your semantic models, and you can have that agent running in GitHub in the cloud, for example.
Now, my first thought when I saw this was that it bears a lot of resemblance to Power BI Copilot. But the key challenge with Copilot is that you have no control over which model it uses, and the context that you can add is currently limited to the AI instructions and other prep your data for AI experiences that are all on an individual model, report, or data agent level. I've been asking the product team for a few months now around how we might be able to centralize this across an organization, to find things like synonyms and descriptions once, and reuse them across various models and reports? I don't think I've got necessarily a good answer on this yet, but coming away from Rui's session, it made me think whether that could be the answer. As we can call this MCP server from the LLM of our choice, on our model of choice, to which we can provide also all of our organizational and industry context. I'm not clear on how Microsoft will make money from this if it's used this way perhaps, but maybe it falls under the same consumption mechanism as tablet capacities. Anyway, I hope you found some value from this. For me, I've been hearing and learning about MCP servers for quite a few months now, but it took this session from Rui at FabCon, combined with listening to a podcast episode between Casper de Jong and Kurt Buehler, which I'll link to in the notes below, for some pennies to finally drop for me around how this all fits into place.